Well, good evening. Sora, Anna, what chapter are you with? Thank you for joining.
I'm in Iota, Mega in Camden, South Carolina.
Okay, awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Good evening. I'm going to do my best to kind of cover Wild Apricot and our implementation of it and how we use it. I don't know, are any of the other chapters on using Wild Apricot currently?
I've used it before in my previous chapter, Pi Alpha Omega. Pretty sure they're still using it. We've been using it since definitely before I was a member, and that was 2003. So using it for a long time. I'm just curious to see how it may have improved since I used it back then.
Okay. Anyone else using Wild Apricot currently or maybe looking to use it?
We're looking to use it.
Okay. So I'm going to preface this with, this whole conversation with, this is how we kind of implemented it. I don't know if that's right or wrong, or perhaps there's things that you guys could share based off of your experience with Wild Apricot, but I can show you what we've done. And then there's what we're planning to do, because we have only had Wild Apricot maybe 3 years now. So we're very new to Wild Apricot, but it's definitely a tool that's helpful for our size chapter. So right now we've got, I think 120, maybe 121, 127 members. So I think the tool is really going to be dependent upon the number of members you have within the chapter. And I know that there's this whole back and forth between, well, do we use Wild Apricot? Do we use Club Express? And I've actually looked at Club Express more recently, only because the pricing is very similar right now. Wild Apricot went up on their pricing. So I started looking at Club Express to see, well, what features are there that we're not getting, that if we're going to be paying the same amount, we might as well use a different platform. But in the end, we're still on Wild Apricot only because I did do some demoing and digging into Club Express, and I just didn't find that it was a tool that the back end of it, which I'll show you guys the back end of Wild Apricot, was as up to date as Wild Apricot. So it just seemed more cumbersome to set up unless you pay for the services for Club Express to set it up for you. So those are kind of my takes on the Club Express route versus Wild Apricot. But nonetheless, hopefully, can you guys see my screen now? Can you see? Okay, so this is our chapter website that we have currently. I designed it using Wild Apricot. So our front end of our website is long, as well as our members only, is all run through Wild Apricot. So you can set up whatever templates, however you want it to look inside of Wild Apricot. This is just what we decided. I generally try to change the lookup like every year because it's very easy just to apply a template and run with it and just kind of change up the colors and what it looks like. But really what we're going to focus on today is the ability for you to log in and kind of see the back end of Wild Apricot and some of the features. So you do have the login. This is something that you do have to set up as a part of the templates for your website to allow people to log in. And so you do have options for login. So people can actually connect this to their Facebook or their Google, which I found pretty useful because some people don't even remember their username and passwords. So it might be helpful, especially for some of your older stores and your chapters, so they don't have to remember their login. And then another nice feature is the forgot password. So if people don't remember the password that you set up originally with implementing the tool, they can always change the password, and this will generate an email to them and it'll let them reset their own password. I had a lot of trouble with a solution we had before we implemented Wild Apricot, where I had to reset passwords and help people to remember what their passwords were versus them just going out and resetting it on their own. So we're going to log in. Once we log in, we've set up a members only site. So this is different than the public site. This is just for sorors to come in and get chapter information. So we have a lot of different things that we do post inside of here, upcoming events, announcements. We even have where you can kind of see certain members of the chapter, resources that are available as well. So people can pay dues from here. We just have links to different things, documents, all kinds of correspondence, anything technology and communications related. But any of this you have to set up through templates in Wild Apricot to kind of get this going. All right, so that is pretty much the members only, the website, like the front end of everything that the members would see, or even from a public standpoint. But if I go into the admin view, which would show us all the other features as a part of Wild Apricot, I'll show that here. And I'm gonna pause for a second because I see Deirdre joined us, and I don't think she's connected to audio yet. And she's part of the chapter that I was asked to kind of provide a demo, and I just want to make sure that I'm covering what she needs. Good evening, Sora Deidre.
Hi, Sarah Ashley. I'm so sorry.
It's okay, no worries.
When we had the conversation, you said next week. So my mind was into next week, not this week. So I'm sorry.
Okay.
So the fact that you're recording is awesome. So I could just send this to the team, and this will be just fine.
Okay. And are there any things that you were looking to get out of this, so I can make sure I cover that?
So we had a demo done by Club Express, and we just never had one for Wild Apricot. Sora Dunn had told me that her chapter was considering switching from Club Express to Wild Apricot. So then we started looking into Wild Apricot, and then so it was like, well, we're trying to find out how do chapters use it. Like, how do you have yours set up? The look and feel of it. They let us demo it. I mean, like, play around with it for like a month, but it's like we really wanted to see it in action.
Right.
So that was the reason why I'd asked if someone could give a demo of how your chapter's using it.
Yeah, it's no problem. Like I told the Soras on earlier, I did evaluate Club Express more recently, only because the cost was very similar to Wild Apricot. Wild Apricot actually went up on their pricing. And so I thought, well, what's the big deal about Club Express? And with that, I did do my own demo and my own analysis of Club Express. And in that, I found that Wild Apricot, from like a back end standpoint, which is what we're looking at right now, is just a better user experience. It's very easy to use. I did not find that with Club Express. I found it to be very not easy to use.
Okay.
Just for somebody who doesn't know anything about setting up websites and how to set things up in a system, very hard to use. And I have a technology background and web design and all of that. And I was just like, this is crazy. So I think that's why on the Club Express side, they offer those services for people to pay them to set it up, because they know it's super hard.
Okay.
So,
that makes sense.
Yeah, so if you go the Club Express route, know that you'll probably have to pay for them to set up your websites and whatnot. The other thing I did cover earlier was, let me show you, was the different websites that we have set up. So this is our public facing website that is based off of Wild Apricot templates. You can pick whatever template you want. You can change the colors. You can do custom HTML or coding to make it more flashy if you would like. The other thing that you do have is the members only. So we do have that set up too. So this is where source can come in and get anything related to the chapter, and you do have to sign in for that. And that's based off of the information that you add to Wild Apricot. So that's just something
Okay.
that I was showing earlier.
So do you guys use their pace, use them to process your payments, like your dues?
Yes. So let me go into
Okay.
the admin and we'll talk about that. So in the back end of the system, so this is how everything kind of works and kind of shows on the public page and also in the members only. There's a number of different sections in here. So when you start out with Wild Apricot, you have to set up all of your members. So for us, we created different levels of membership to kind of differentiate people by groups and what information they can kind of see within the chapter or within the system. So we have chapter members, e-board members, and then we even have our undergrad chapter that we support, Iota's Eye. They're also a part of our Wild Apricot and they use it as well. So you have to set up all of your members, and I'll show you, let's see, what a member looks like. I had to basically, before we started Wild Apricot, we had information everywhere about our members. We had it in Google Sheets. There was Excel sheets places. It had like, you know, membership numbers and financial card numbers, everything. So I consolidated everything, was able to put it all into Wild Apricot, and I was able to import it in. So now this is the one place where we hold all of our member information. There's no external spreadsheets where we're maintaining membership. All of that's in here. So for example, when I come into, let's just say, Ashley Aiken's profile, when I imported the information, I got as much as I could from all the different spreadsheets, whether that was her email address, where she lives, her birth date, phone number, and then we added additional information about our members so we could keep up from like a sisterly relation standpoint, and some other areas, and even Ivy Beyond the Wall details, because that's something that we kind of don't keep up with. So we would know if in case we had to pull that information, we could pull that for that particular process. But this is just things that we had. And then if they went to an HBCU, so if we needed to see all the members who were part of an HBCU, we could see all of that as well. So for example, for chapter meetings, when we need to know who has a birthday this month, we come to Wild Apricot and pull the information out by month, and then we know what members have birthdays for that particular day. It's a very easy way of trying to figure that out. And then also any groups that they may participate in, we have that set up as well. We'll add them to groups, and the groups actually help with communications. So now people can come into the system and send those people who are part of specific groups communications as well. So it's very helpful to manage members that way. So that's what we have set up in our members section. We also do it for event management. So any event that we have, board meetings, committee meetings, chapter meetings, anything that's going on with the chapter, whether it's chapter related or even any of our public events, all of that is a part of our event listing. When you set up an event, you can determine if it's only for the chapter, or you can actually make it where you can see it on the public website. So let me see if I can show you what this looks like. So in the events on the public website, right now it doesn't show, no, it does actually show upcoming events. These are all public facing events. So for example, I am logged in, so it is going to show me the November chapter meeting. But if I wasn't logged in as a chapter member, it would not show certain events like the chapter meeting and the technology meeting. So that's something that's pretty cool. So you have all of your events in one place so people don't have to figure out, well, what's going on with the chapter, what's happening. Let's go back.
So for your events, so you can actually have people pay for the event through the website, right? And it goes through.
Mhm.
Okay, perfect. Oh,
Yep,
that's nice.
Yep, people can pay for the events. They can also pay for anything that might come along with the event. So let's say, for example, we did like a cooking with ECO, and there was aprons involved. So they were able to create a way for people to pay for those aprons, and then you could see who all paid through Wild Apricot as a part of that event. I'm the technology chair for my chapter, but then I'm also the PG as well. So for me, it's very easy to keep up with payments as well,
Right.
for events and the money that comes in for events this way.
So for
Um,
dues, does it allow stores to be able to have, let's say they only want to pay like 25 a month. Can
Yep.
we set it up to where they can do payments for dues and all that
Yep.
kind of? Oh,
Yeah,
perfect.
so we are, when you talk about dues, that's going to be under finances. Because I'm the PG, I collect all of that, and I use Wild Apricot as my way to record everything. And because everybody has a account within Wild Apricot, you can see the running list of everything that any events they've attended, anything that they've paid for. So the way that this works is by invoicing. For example, we have not used Wild Apricot for dues yet, so I'm still kind of in the process of kind of figuring that out. But what I plan to do is issue invoices to the stores, and they would be responsible for paying that invoice. So once they pay it, then it'll show up on their account that they've paid. Now, throughout the year, people have made payments on their dues, and I've recorded all of that. So I would just adjust either their invoice or the invoices previously to kind of level that out, or balance it, I guess. But you can issue automatically people to pay, and if they don't pay by a certain period of time, it'll automatically make them inactive within the system. That's also something I like.
Okay.
Yeah. But you only get that feature if you do manage your dues within the system,
Okay.
the automation of that. Because being the PG, that's something that I did find pretty cumbersome. It's like you have to go in, I guess in like February, and see who's paid, who hasn't paid, and then versus it being just automated. That's something that I'm working on for this upcoming year to implement.
Okay. So,
Mhm.
sorry to change the subject, but we're just thinking of all the things that we were trying to figure out. But for the, what was I going to say? I don't lost my train of thought. Oh, for payment of this, to pay them for their services for the Wild Apricot membership. Do you guys have it where, because I know there's a rule that chapters can't have debit cards, from what we were told. So do you guys have it automatically come out of the bank account, or how do you pay for Wild Apricot?
Yeah, so we do an annual, and they invoice us. When the invoice comes in, I just submit for a check to be cut, and we mail it.
Oh, okay.
That's how we do it. Yeah, we just do an annual. I don't know of any other ways to do that if we can't have, unless somebody wanted to pay for it, then get reimbursed. But that seems to work for us, and we haven't had any issues with doing that as long as whoever is managing this knows when it's going to come. So, for example, it's every February for us. So I know that it's coming, and go ahead and get that done annually. Otherwise, it's $50 a month. Because and it's based off of contacts. So we have 250 contacts. So you have to be careful with this. This is one thing that I may change in the future, but I'm not sure. You can only have 250 contacts, meaning if you have external people outside of your chapter who register events, they are actually a contact. So they get included into your database, which is good for like marketing purposes, right? So if you want to invite those individuals, public people to your events later, you can remarket to them. But if you're not really in that state, then you just have to go in and inactivate people. So like right now I am exceeding my 250 limit, but what I do is I'll go in and make certain people deactivated, and then it puts me back under my limit.
Does it give them a category? Like, so if a person, you know, pays for an event, a public event through there, are they automatically placed in a category? So you could just choose that category, or how are they added to the system?
It won't show. So membership, it'll just be blank. So
Oh,
like,
okay.
again, we have our e-board members, chapter members, and then anybody who's blank would let you know that they're not a part of any of AK at all.
Okay.
And they just
So for
click.
your, sorry, changing again, but for
No,
your
go ahead,
groups,
keep going.
for your groups, you mentioned your groups. I'm assuming you're referring to committees, right?
Yep.
Okay. So in that system, can you make it to where each committee, you know, do you have it what each committee has positions? Like, can you designate like the coach, the chair, co-chair type thing in that committee in the system?
No. So for example, we have like the archives committee. It's just a list of people who are a part of that committee. And you can use these groups mainly for communications. That's what the groups are for.
Okay.
Or if you just want to maintain who is a part of what committee, is also a good way to do that. Which
Okay.
is
So you can't give special privileges to certain, like to the chairs, say, okay, only the chairs can send emails out type thing.
Yeah, so you do have, let me think about where that is. You can give people certain access. So for example, my account, I have full access. There's only 3 people within our chapter who have full access and can do anything. There are certain people who have just event manager, so they can create events as they need to. There are certain people who can edit the website, can manage membership, so they can go in and make changes to membership information. There's also newsletter manager. So those individuals would be able to create emails and send them out as well. So you can add certain access and make people administrators. Yes.
Nice. Okay. Perfect.
So everybody doesn't have to have full access.
So for the, I know I'm jumping everywhere, but for the website piece of it, is that extra? Because I know I was told, I think Soraya Down was saying, like with Club Express, a lot of things, you know, if you want to use their payment processor, if you want to use this, you want to use that, it's all extra with Club Express. Is that all included in the price? Like the website that you can build?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, so we pay, what is it, $50 a month for 250 everything's based off of contact. So if you have more than that or more members, then you'll need to go up. But that includes everything. So like your websites, because we do technically have multiple, because we have our internal and then we also have our public facing websites. So there's really 2 websites.
Okay.
But yeah, that's all included, and you can connect your domain, so your URL at the top up here to it.
Okay.
So if you already had a domain that you're using for your chapter, you can just connect it to Wild Apricot.
Nice.
Sorry, dogs are gonna bark.
Okay. I don't think we had like my chapter, had any other questions, you know, we've been trying to, you know, compare the two, and we sort of was leaning towards wild apricot, but we sort of just wanted to see it put together and see, like, we felt like how you're saying that it seemed easier to work with than Club Express. So, and I feel like with the price, because it seems to be pretty affordable, that we can actually, you know, do two separate accounts, like one for our foundation and one for the chapter. So
Yeah, that's where we're at right now. So our foundation is actually probably going to implement their own instance of wild apricot because it does need to be separated. So that means
can
that,
they import, like, so can they communicate? So do you know if, like, maybe there's this foundation account and then the chapter account? Do you know if they can, like, because pretty much every member that's in our chapter is also a part of the foundation. So can you, like, import data?
yeah. So like for your members, you can export it, and then you would just import it into the next instance for wild apricot for your foundation, which is what I will do, because it'll be super simple to set up. The biggest overhaul is going to be the website pieces and things for the foundation. And then like on the foundation side of things, like your donations, like this is what I'm really interested in implementing, is the donations and recording donations, because this helps you create like a donor list. So now you have a database of donors, which, you know, now you can kind of go and pull things out and maybe contact them. You can issue receipts, which is also great too, from a financial standpoint. One of the things I didn't talk about, so if I start thinking about things that we're going to do, is implementing our store. So often within the chapter we have where people can buy apparel, like, you know, chapter shirts or hats or whatever. I plan on doing like a ECO store, so people can come into the members only site and purchase items. So this is something that you can manage here. And then when people do that, it also adds it to their account. So now they can see what I've paid for with the chapter. So it's a running list and a ledger of all the payments they've paid to the chapter, which is what I like, especially from like a PG standpoint. That's awesome.
Right.
And another thing that we'll be implementing is forums. So we don't have a centralized place where our chapter members can communicate with each other in the virtual world. So we've tried like Facebook groups and things like that. That doesn't really work for us because we have our like the generational gaps within our chapter. But Wild Apricot has forums. So I planned on implementing forums so people can come out. They want to post announcements to the entire chapter. They want to kind of have chats as committees, to kind of bring that together as well, or posting maybe their meeting minutes and bringing all of that into one place. I plan on kind of using forums for that. And then it makes it easier because now the chapter members just come into Wild Apricot. They're not going out to Microsoft or Google and have to figure out how to get in there. They're just going into Wild Apricot. And that's the only thing they need to remember for anything for the chapter.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, that's the plan for 2022, is the store and the forums. And then hopefully Wild Apricot will have some other neat things that come out and we can implement those too.
Yeah, one more question. So when you have the public events, can you say that you want the fees to be paid by the person paying for the ticket, or does the chapter always take on the cost of the
So fee meaning for the event, or
the fee, that the payment processing fee?
It can be either. So when you create an event, I don't know if I have access to anything that's been paid lately. Since everything's been online, we haven't been.
Yeah, we haven't had any many paid
Um,
events. Yeah.
When you create an event, you have the ability to, can I do this without? I'm not gonna be able to do it that way, but you can specify different types of registrations. So you can say that, okay, a chapter member can have guests and they can pay on behalf of other people, or you can have where anybody in the public can pay for themselves. So you have options. It just depends on how you set up the event. And if you do take credit cards, there is a fee through the
Right,
system.
that's the fee that I was asking about. Can you
Oh, the
pass
fee.
that on to the,
Yes.
to
Yep, we sure do.
okay. Perfect.
Yeah, so in the past, because I wasn't familiar with Wild Apricot enough, we would add that to the cost of the event, just to make it easier. But I think moving forward, I'm gonna have it automatically calculated as like a service charge.
Okay.
I don't think my calculations were exact. I think it was off by like a cent or two. So
Right, I've run into that same issue.
yeah, so I just want to automatically calculate the 3.5%. I think it's 3.5%, and then it may be something plus like a transaction fee. So just trying to calculate that a little bit better. But yeah, we pass it on.
Okay, perfect. I believe that's all the questions that I had. So I don't know if anyone else has any questions.
No other questions. I hope you guys found this insightful.
Yes, this definitely was for me. Seeing the two platforms and seeing how you guys use it seems like it just would be a perfect fit for my chapter.